Hey everyone, Dr. Alex here, and welcome to corrective exercise video number 2. In this video, we are going to build on the 7 skills that we learned in corrective exercise video 1 to start developing some strength through the core and around the spine with the goal of better being able to protect and stabilize our spine as we move through the MOVE curriculum in order to build a healthier spine and a healthier body. We're going to need to use all of the skills that we developed in corrective exercise video 1. So if you haven't done that yet, go back, watch, make sure that you can do the skills. If you're not sure if you can, make sure you ask me during your next checkup. And so with this video, we are going to start building some strength through and around the spine. With most of these, we want to do them ideally every day, but once is better than 0 times. I would shoot for somewhere between 2 and 5 times per week, with 5 ideally being much better than 2. In general, you can do 1 or 2 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions per side with any of these exercises. Typically, you'll be able to get through these exercises in somewhere between 9 and 15 minutes, so it shouldn't require a lot of time, with the goal being that long term, if you're able to incorporate this into a ritual or a regular routine, it is going to make sure that you minimize the chance of your body and your spine ever holding you or your health back. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first exercise that we're going to review is the Cat-Camel, which you will see in the full mobility routine. You'll remember there are 5 steps. First, the head falls to the ground. We push up through the hands to round the neck and the mid-back while keeping that neck nice and soft. And then we're going to tuck the tail in, which is like squeezing your buttocks. If you stick your butt out, it is the opposite motion of that. And you're gonna get this big, tall arc or arc de triomphe. And then you're gonna take a nice big breath in, let all the air out after you've held that for a second to a half second. And then you're gonna stick your bottom out, push your belly button to the ground, and lift your head up. You'll notice if you rewatch this section, I can move back and forth in the Cat-Camel or left, right to play with the mobility a bit, get some different spots through the spine. You can work on just moving the head around or combining head movement with just the mid-back movement by pushing up the arms. If you want to floss or move your spinal cord, you might want to try this latest maneuver you see here with just the head and the upper back if you're noticing the Cat-Camel is really stiff and sore. But this is something that I think everyone should start off with. It's safe for the spine to get it moving, and it's going to make your day that much better when you start that way. Next, we are going to progress into a up dog, down dog series. You can see me here pedaling out the feet, just warming up the hamstrings a little bit. This exercise is a little bit more tough for the spine, tough for the shoulders, has more strength demands. But if you can manage it, it's another great way to warm up the shoulders and the hips after you've worked through the Cat-Camel, and is going to be a good basis to get the rest of the exercises going so that they can be done extra safely. I more so included this just because it feels good, it's good for the shoulders, it's good for your spine, and will start to help build some strength through the shoulders, through the hips, and through the core, which is going to be a nice basis as we move on to some of the more difficult exercises. So the next exercise we're going to do is the reach back, which is the exercise of the drill I will give out most often for somebody looking to improve their spine health and strength and overall their posture and their structure. The goal with this is to strengthen the muscles between the shoulder blades, specifically in the spine. It's really important with this exercise that you keep your buttock against the heels so that you don't move your low back. All of the motion should come between the shoulder blades. That's where you should feel the strain. That's where you should feel the resistance. You've got your hand on the small of your back. The other arm is right between the knees pointing forward. And you're going to initiate and move the spine by rotating between the shoulder blades. You'll see here that I've got a pillow between the heels and the buttock. If your buttock cannot touch your heels, this is when you should put a pillow there, maintaining contact the entire time to make sure that all or as much motion as possible comes from the mid-back between the shoulder blades. Make sure that you lead with the shoulder as opposed to leading with and pulling with your neck. It's okay if your eyes look to where you want to go, but make sure the motion comes from between the spine and between the shoulder blades. So the next set of exercises we're going to go through involve strengthening your core and specifically being able to hold your spine and your core tight while moving your shoulders and your hips around it. It is a much more advanced core exercise if you ask your spine to twist and move while also trying to stabilize your spine. So we start with these exercises first. Here we're gonna start with a fire hydrant. I'm up in that quadruped position like I'm a table, just like start with the cat-camel. And I'm gonna lift my hip out to the side and back. And I'm gonna hold it for upwards of a minute. 3 things to notice here. You'll notice that my spine does not change. My hip and shoulder do not become disconnected. I do not lead with my spine. I do not twist the low back. All of the motion is in the buttock and in the hip. You can imagine if you had a glass of water on your spine, that glass of water would not move. Often I will direct patients to bring the knee out slowly and lowly, just engaging their hip, kind of at like a 45-degree angle. It's called a fire hydrant because it's like when a dog pees at a fire hydrant. That leg is supposed to come out and a little bit back and not straight out to the side. You can see here that that spine does not move. It maintains almost perfectly straight. If you're having trouble with this, practice engaging the core muscles, not sucking the gut in, but bracing them like we talked about in the first video, and make sure that you engage that buttock or that gluteus medius and minimus muscle on the side of the hip. Next exercise is actually a little bit easier. It's a standardized clamshell. You lie on your side, you keep the ankles together, and then without moving your trunk again, you're gonna use your hip to bring the knee off the other knee. Hold that for a minute. If you can't hold it for a minute, you're gonna do 30 seconds and 30 seconds or 15 seconds and 45 seconds, whatever adds up to a total minute. With this exercise, it's important where the belly button continues to point forward, your trunk does not twist and move, it's only motion at the hip, there is no motion coming from the low back. You can see in this side profile video that the ear, shoulder, and hip should be stacked up in line with the ankle, and that alignment should maintain when you do and move through this exercise for that 1 minute. The next exercise we're gonna go through here is a leg lift. Same idea, 1 minute holds. In this case, ear, shoulder, hip are lined up with the knee and the ankle, and then we're going to lift a straight leg up and a little bit back so it's just a little bit past parallel with the body, a little bit above. The mistake that most people make with this video or this exercise is that they lift the leg too far forward using the hip flexors and the muscles in the front. Very important that you make sure that the leg comes up and a little bit back, and you should predominantly feel this in the glutes. And if you were to put your hand on your hip flexors, just where your front pocket is, they should be relatively soft. This exercise is more difficult than the clamshell. If you're tight for time, you could pick clamshell or leg lift, but best would be to do both in one day. The next progression that we're going to use to strengthen the obliques and the glutes on the side of the hip through the core is a simple side plank. In this case, you'll see the knees are bent at 90 degrees, knee, hip, shoulder, ear, totally stacked up. Hold for 1 minute, both sides. You can also add your clamshell and your leg lift as modifiers with this and hold both of those positions for 1 minute. Same rules apply. You want to have the same stacking through the spine, ear, shoulder, hip lined up, core is engaged, and we only use that buttock muscle where we want to make sure that all the motion is coming and derived from the hip and making sure that that trunk does not rotate. It is one solid brick. The next exercise we're going to review is one for the rectus abdominis and the hip flexors, the trunk muscles in the front. Much better than doing sit-ups because of much lower risk of causing a disc or a low back injury. The important thing with this exercise is to make sure that the core remains engaged so that the rib cage stays down and that the pelvis and the rib cage stay in line. You'll see that when I do this poorly, we get this hollowing of the low back where the low back raises up off of the ground. The cue that will help you with this to make sure that the core is engaged and that the pelvis and the ribs stay down is to push the small of your back into the floor and maintaining it while you lower one arm or lower the other arm or lower either leg. When you're lowering the arms and the legs, and you might even go into that cross pattern when you're feeling more comfortable that you can see here, the most important thing is to keep the core in the front engaged so that the small back stays pressed to the ground. This exercise is a little bit useless if the rib cage flares up and you arch your spine backwards, or if the pelvis tilts forward and that the spine again gets that arch in it, or arc. Second last exercise we're gonna do, you're gonna see a familiar position, that quadruped position is where we start, and this is kind of the opposite of the dead bug. This is the bird dog, and this is where we're gonna be maintaining that good core brace and strength, that tabletop position where the spine doesn't move, and we're gonna work on lifting arm, leg, or in that cross pattern. Now, one thing that I see people make the mistake of is they lose that nice neutral spine in the low back. They arch their spine too much, or they use their glute to lift the leg too far up. Really important that at the end you should really just feel the glute muscle engage and that it's not doing any lifting, so that that glass of water on the low back, it maintains its position, and then we have that straight line between the hip and the shoulder. You might notice some rocking left and right to maintain stability. That is okay, but it shouldn't be really, really obvious. One repetition with the cross pattern is when you do arm, leg. That is one repetition. So if you're gonna do one set of 8 reps, it would be arm, leg, times 8. So last but not least, we've got some squats. The squat is probably the most difficult of all of these exercises to do well. You can do it with or without a weight. Going back to corrective exercise video 1, you'll remember the key is that we start with that hip hinge. The buttock is gonna come and move backwards, and you can get some assistance by this by getting that feeling like you're gonna fall back, or by pushing the knees to the outside. Go down as low as you can, or at least as low as you feel comfortable with the spine maintaining a relatively straight angle. And with this, you can progress your weight up, but even just doing body weight should be satisfactory to building some strength through the core. So that's the end of corrective exercise video 2. Again, with all of those exercises, you can make them more difficult if you add, say, a resistance band, if you want to do more reps. In the case where you can add some weight, you add some more weight. But once you can do these, and once you've been doing them regularly for a few weeks or a few months and feeling really confident, that's when I would recommend that you can go lift bigger weights, do some more fast work, whether we're talking about plyometrics, sprints, whatever it is that has you excited to exercise and to move. But I would always recommend that these exercises be a regular part of your routine and your schedule to help keep your spine stable, to help keep the shoulders, the core, the glutes strong, so that as we move forward in life, we're able to do anything we want, and our spine and our health never holds us back. Hope you guys enjoyed.